Welcome to Reduce CO2 Now. In this video, we're looking at traditional recruiting processes and why they deliver suboptimal results, especially when you look at science. And so we are first looking at the traditional recruiting process, then we're looking like at the recruiting reality, which has changed over the last decades, especially like in the year 2026, and then what you could be doing differently and give an example for that. Let's have a look at the traditional recruiting process. And you could summarize this as, hey, we have always done it like this. You know, if people are used to something, they keep doing this over and over again. So usually you have something like a preparation, you need a budget, you want to have a job requisition, some internal processes and a company planning, etc., which is necessary, including like really preparing this job offer, which is like the next step. There you need to do a job description, preferred skills, qualifications, and so often. But usually this is often generic because in a normal company, a line manager is like not that often hiring a new person. If you're in a startup, that's a different situation. But that could be quite generic. But there's a very important point here. And we come to this back later. Then there's usually a general description of the company, which has usually a higher quality because it's used more often and more polished. Then you're going to go and publish this, and depending on the job market situation, you're also like marketing it or like sending out to a lot of platforms to attract applicants, including your company website. And then you receive the application, usually in an online system running on from your company website. There is then an initial screening done by a recruiter or the line manager or both. And you try to get like all the applicants down to something like 3 to 10 or so, that you have a more manageable kind of pool. You do this by reviewing CVs or motivation letters, look for references, certificates, maybe the LinkedIn profile, employer letters, and these kind of things. Then you go to the first interview round. Usually this nowadays is done with video interviews or by the telephone, where a recruiter or the line manager are going to have an interview with the applicants you have chosen down. Then you're choosing down even more and you go to interview round number 2, where you invite the people, usually in person, let's say the line manager, and maybe now you have an HR business partner. That's not the recruiter anymore, who's actually then participating in this second interview. Then you come to a hiring decision. And of course, there's like all kinds of relation to such a process. The observation is that most hiring decisions are actually based on documents and interviews, not observing actual job performance. Let's look at the recruiting reality in the year 2026. So we have something like an application explosion. 30 years ago, a company placed a job ad in a newspaper, and then applicants had to search this, prepare a CV, cover letter, print and mail this. And so there was some real effort involved in each application. And you could see that in the numbers. In 1995, a typical company would receive something like 20 applications. In 2010, that could be 80 due to the use of online systems. Nowadays, it could be like 500 or even 1,000 applications for one job or for a good company. And then you start looking to search for the needle in the haystack. Why is this today the case? Well, applying is really, really fast. It just takes minutes for one application. There's even one-click applications like LinkedIn Easy Apply. That's so like fast that it takes us nearly seconds to do one application. And so one applicant can submit 50 to 100 applications in a single weekend. That's like not really a problem for the person. And the other thing is that, of course, we have now an AI battle going on. And applicants use AI to create CVs and cover letters and optimize them. Even they can optimize it really easy for a certain job offer. So actually asking for a cover letter is like really sort of ridiculous, because you know you're getting something from an AI and the person's just saying, here, this is my CV, this is the job offer, give me a cover letter. And the AI is doing this. So recruiters are then using AI to filter applications. So we have an AI producing something and an AI filtering it again, and humans are increasingly removed from the process, which might not be a bad idea, because we see this later on of all the bias humans have. The effect, by the way, is now that recruiters spend increasingly less time reviewing CVs. This is like maybe seconds or so if they are screening, so they don't really do much reading of CVs anymore. But you need to get past the AI to actually see the recruiter, maybe. Huh? And one other effect is that job specifications have become much more a critical success factor nowadays, because you want to really tell the AI exactly what you need. Otherwise, you just get something like generic. So the generic approach in the past wasn't really that bad, because you could still adjust, let's say, in the with the applicants and like tell them this and so on. So there was adjustment possible, but you don't have that anymore. So you need to really be very focused on the job specifications. So the traditional recruiting process was designed for a few applicants, really. It was designed for just having very few people you have to deal with. Today, you have to handle like hundreds or thousands of applications. So the reality has changed. The process largely has not. So let's have a look at some flaws of the recruiting process. And bias is not a bug, it's a feature. So it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's our human brains have evolved for rapid decision making in the evolution. And this bias helps us to make decisions really quickly, to reduce our cognitive effort. So it's easier to do this decision. It functions under uncertainty. And examples are something like, can I eat this food? Is that person a threat? Should I be running or fighting? Or these kinds of everyday decision. And recruiting, on the other hand, asks a fundamentally different question. Who will perform best in this job in the future? Which is a very, very tough question to actually answer. And now we have like all kinds of common decision biases. There's really a lot of them, like just picked some very good examples here. One is the similarity bias. So this person reminds you of somebody you know. It could be like maybe your father, your mother, or something like this. And then it's really the question, do you like that person? And this kind of attribution goes to that person as well. Halo effect, it's like one characteristic, it influencing all the other judgments as well. Like you have maybe a person which is very attractive, and then you think they're also like very clever. Confirmation bias, you have taken a decision of, let's say, that person I don't like, and then you start looking only for like the bad evidence to support your decision and so on. First impression, you just like see a person, and the first thing they do, is going to have a result for your overall judgment. So just like this first impression. So the list is really long. Human intuition is excellent for many everyday decisions. How to do stuff with your family. If you have to like overthink everything, it's just too slow. But predicting job performance is a much, much harder task. And our brains were optimized for fast judgment, not for accurate talent prediction. And now we have another big problem here in the process, because you're actually testing the wrong skills. In an interview, you actually measure interview performance. You don't really measure job performance. You're trying to estimate job performance, but you're measuring interview performance. So what is really rewarded in an interview? So what is rewarded in an interview is being good at interviews. So it's a good idea actually to train, to go to some job interviews before you maybe want to go to your dream company. Something like confidence, self-presentation, quick responses, charisma, social fluency, storytelling. All these kind of things are going to hit. And they might be really good if you're like a salesman and that kind of stuff is really needed. But what many jobs actually require is something that is really being good at the job at hand. And if you're a software developer, all these other skills from the job interview are like maybe not needed in your team, because there you have problem solving, working together as a team, persistence, learning ability, creativity, technical expertise, reliability, and so on. Nothing what you could really judge in an interview. You can only like ask the question because the candidate talks about their capabilities, and the interviewer evaluates the conversation. It's just talking about something, not the thing itself. Like imagine You have a person, you want to have a sharpshooter in the military, and then you could be talking about shooting for hours. But, instead of just giving the person a good rifle and then saying, here's a target, make 10 shots, and then we will see how good you are. Yeah? That would be like actually testing and making a work sample. We come to that later. Many recruiting processes select the people who are best at presenting themselves. And that might be good for maybe a salesman, maybe for a manager, even though that's questionable. But as a politician, you basically want to have presenting yourselves, or you have somebody who should go and present your company, then that presentation skills are really, really needed. But not necessarily are the people chosen who have the strongest ability to do the job at hand. Oh, what is science saying? There's predictive validity of hiring method, which basically says how well do selected methods predict the future performance. There's like a table, the full table, and the sources are like on the last page to look that up. We just picked here some methods and, we said and weighted them. For example, the normal job interview has a quite low predictive validity, but it has sort of high cost because we really involve people doing these job interviews. And job interviews here in the list, I think it's 0.38 as listed for the traditional interview, employee interviews, unstructured, 0.38. But there's lots of sources which also suggest that the normal job interview is even lower, something like 0.2 to 0.38. That is sort of low. Assessment centers are having the same kind of predictive validity, 0.37. So that means you're putting out lots and lots of money. The cost for an assessment center is really high. And the predictive validity is medium. It's not really going much better. Intelligence assessment, so if you know how intelligent a person is, that's like the GMA test, has a high, nearly one of the highest predictive validities, and it's sort of simple to do, so it's 0.51. The best really for predictive validity is doing a work sample. So you actually have a work sample, you have a very high predictive validity. How much that is costing you is a question, because if you do it like this, that you actually gain something from there, the cost would be negative. But let's say the cost is low to medium for you. So the most cost-efficient combination of all these things is doing intelligence plus a work sample, because then it's adding up to 0.63. So the both methods combined actually give you a higher result. Structured interviews are in the list as well, and they are also having a significantly better performance than the traditional normal interviews. But in practice, they often fail, and they are not really carried out that often. It's really, really, really rare. Personally, I would say I've never really seen it. It requires, standardized questions, clear scoring criteria, trained interviewers, strict discipline, because otherwise you're getting all these, you're getting all these biases back, and that is as simple. Even if you try to be precise and you read just a question, the way if you already think that person, I don't like that person, you're going to perform differently in even trying to do the structured thing. This kind of science, by the way, has been available for decades. It's well known, all that stuff. And the challenge is not knowing what works, but actually changing how we recruit. Here's just a very simple example. What does a work sample basically mean? And here's this thing. They would say there's a client coming with a very, very shiny car to a tire and wheel shop. And then the task was now for the salesperson to sell that client something. And most people just started to immediately try them some new wheels, rims, tires, and so on, and make really the customer happy by selling them, really, because they saw all the big money. But actually what the customer wanted was a used tire to hang in the yard that the pet can play around. And the only thing really the salesperson needed to do is just asking, hello, man, what do you need? And then just listening, what just very few people done. I know the person who got the job actually asked the question, well, what do you need? And then, I need a tire. Oh, let's go back to the backyard, fetch you a tire. You can have it like for free, or whatever. It's just like make the customer happy. And that was that test of a work sample for a salesperson. Let's look at intelligence recruiting. You want to recruit people who can solve tomorrow's problems. Why does intelligence matter so much? Well, first of all, cognitive ability is one of the strongest predictors of job performance. We have seen this in the last slide. Intelligence tests, by the way, are sort of low cost. Intelligence is needed for all kinds of complex work, learning new topics quickly, understanding complex systems, solving unfamiliar problems, making decisions under uncertainty. And we have now something like the AI revolution, similar to the automation revolution we had like in the 80s and 90s, which changed the work on the shop floor. And now we have a changing nature of our work in offices. AI is increasingly taking over repetitive tasks, data processing, routine analysis, standardized workflows. The value shifts now because you want to have somebody who is like more, he can connect all these dots. You want to have intelligent people to design new processes, create concepts and architectures, connect different domains, think creatively and outside the box. Because like your whole working environment is going to get revolutionized. So like all the people have sort of to adjust. Additional success factors coming into play more and more. So modern teams, they need to work remotely. Their intercultural and international competence is needed. Self-organization, motivation and ownership, agile development methods, for example, are all factors you want to have with a new hire. So how should we recruit then? Instead of asking, can you convince us in an interview, we should ask, can you solve a meaningful problem? And selection should combine intelligent assessment somehow with a real work sample, in the best case. The future belongs to people who can learn, think, create, and collaborate. And recruiting must test these capabilities directly. So let's have a look at the reduce CO2 now recruiting approach, a process that is designed that you get what you want and replace interviews with contribution. So what do we want to find? Our ideal contributor for our volunteer project is like motivated, intelligent, and can do in an agile teamwork framework. And of course, like motivation is for us highly important, curiosity, willingness to learn, adapt to change, and all these kind of things are included there. So we are actually looking for some quite generic things that a lot of companies would be searching for as well. How is our process actually working? So first of all, we put out a job offer. Then we invite all applicants to join us. And there's no screening. So we invite all applicants. We can't even do any kind of discrimination because we invite everybody. Then we invite them really to join our Discord community. We use Discord system as like for project management and so on, and watch some video material we have on YouTube. There's like all kinds of stuff out there, but they get pointed to the most important ones. And then we invite them to join a team meeting where in the first, the applicants are introducing themselves like in the first 10 minutes or so. Then we are going to work together on a current project topic. It's really something like we're doing maybe like something like this presentation or a social media post or software requirements, a user interface. We are going to work on something which we actually need in the project. So we are advancing this issue. And then at the end of the meeting, everybody should select a task they want to contribute to. So they actually should be saying, okay, my next step is I'm going to do a user interface for this, for example. Or I'm going to write a social media post. Or I'm going whatever they decide to do. And then they actually perform this and we see a continuous contribution. What this process is designed for, that not we are selecting anybody really, the applicants, they select themselves. Low motivation leaves naturally. They're not even going to Discord or they're not going to a meeting. They're never actually starting to produce anything. So low motivation filters out themselves and goes away. High motivation actually starts contributing. That's what we want to see. We want to see people who are actually productively contributing to our work. And by the way, the whole project benefits because we are solving real problems with real people and we can really use that. Knowledge is created, new contributors integrate in the whole team, and recruiting is something like now a productive item in our project. Recruiting is not like a cost, something you have to do on top. Now, recruiting has become a productive work environment. So we are working on a software development we call intelligent recruiting so far. We want to stop to optimize applications. We want to go and understand people. They are in this concept. There's let's say 4 cornerstones of this. First of all, there should be some meaningful effort created by the whole thing. You want to have some reasonable entry barrier to filter out the less motivated people, but you don't want to filter out the talent which is motivated. Then there should be a structured evaluation, similar to structured interviews, because they are proven to be working as well. But we have to take the human out of the equation. So everybody gets the same input, company videos, questions, tasks, stuff like this, and so on. And then the whole thing will be completely evaluated by AI. So we take the human bias for this kind out of the equation. We want to measure relevant capabilities. There should be something like an intelligence assessment inside of the app, and it should be based on work samples in the end. How could the overall process look like? Okay, something like this. The company explains the mission, the task, and the challenges in video, and maybe also asking a specific question so that you actually have to watch this video, because then in the next step, the applicant, they have to invest some effort. They have to learn about the company. So watch the complete video and get some details, what is in the video. Then they record a personal video for each application. And you might be having only 1 or 2 or similar amount of shots for this, but you are going to make a personal video for each application, which, by the way, will then also automatically reviewed by AI. Then you're going to answer structured questions. They might be coming from the company or from the job or so on. So there will be a set of questions you have to answer, again, in videos. You're not typing something in. You actually have to perform these questions. And applicants can take in intelligence tests, something like this camera verification, so to assess their intelligence, which will not be, of course, all that stuff will not be disclosed, or it will be kept, but it will be used in the evaluation process. And then there should be something like a team challenge or work sample, hopefully done remotely. If you're just looking for people in your area because they already should be living there and not relocate anyway, then of course you can also do the work sample in person. The idea is that the best candidates are not identified by what they say, they are identified by what they invest, demonstrate, and contribute to. So it's really a test, and if you are really clever and your work sample is actually helping you, imagine you want to have a graphic designer and you tell them, hey, you're doing these graphic designs, and if you really like it, we're going to pay you something for the design, but we're going to use it. You actually add to the value of your company. There will be no CV upload inside, instead a standardized work history format or something like this. So you don't have to make a shiny CV anymore. And there's no optimization for each job effort and these kind of things. So there will be some more interesting feature. By the way, if you want to join us and also work in the area of recruiting, for example, you join us on Discord and then you come to an online meeting. Like already described, it's really, really simple. Here's some example. You go to Discord, our main platform for project management, communication, video conferences, chat, and so on. It's a one-stop shop practically. And your steps are join Discord. You can take the link here, or you can go to reduceco2now.com, find the link in the description. You go to the events section. Events are meetings, yeah, and then you join one of the recurring meetings, video conference, introduce yourself, and discuss your participation. Yeah, that's overall how our recruiting process looks. So thank you very much for watching. Please share, subscribe, and of course leave a comment on this video. Here is some sources mentioned for this. One of the most well-known sources from 1998. You see it here. That's the whole table for the people who are interested. The one line has been crossed out because there was like more recent research finding, oh, that's like not correct for the interview sales. There's another link down there. For unstructured interviews, there's like also much lower predictions for the unstructured interview, like 0.19 or 0.33 in some other sources here. So unstructured interviews, really not the thing you want to rely on. Some remarks on the general thing. So the whole thing, intelligence, how even to judge what work performance is complex and contested. Even like the concept of intelligence tests and so on, highly complex, contested stuff. So but for us to use it, we have to rely on something. And by the way, that kind of stuff, it has actually been taught in university where I live quite recently. Measuring actual job performance is like really problematic. It is very much biased. Yeah. If your boss actually likes you, you will get better results from like your boss if your boss doesn't like you. But is it the actual job performance that the person's liking you or else? So measuring actual job performance is going to fill lots and lots of libraries, as it is very much biased. Conclusions about intelligence, about all these kind of things, they are still discussed. This topic is going on because humans are a complicated kind of thing. And as much as humans are working with humans and humans have to evaluate the humans, it's a different story. If you have a salesperson and they're selling like quite a generic thing and there you can measure sales, for example, in the revenue they're doing and in the sales value they're doing. But in a lot of other jobs, it's job performance actually much harder to measure. Sorry. Again, intelligence and IQ tests and all these kind of things that are even discussed. So the scientific community doesn't really agree there on all the kind of things. Job complexity is, of course, a factor. Job complexity has increased over the decades, and that is changing, and the list goes on. So do your own research. These are some well-known sources, what we used here to construct this interview, but really look at the current science and do your own research. Thank you very much for watching again. Please like, share, and subscribe. And of course, let's turn climate change around.